Right on, writers, and welcome first-time viewers to the Books by Adrian Author platform. This is Tuber Book Club, where we read, discuss, review books written by author tubers, and then we interview those people, like what we're doing today. This is the final episode of 2022. I can't believe it. It's crazy. The year's almost over already. Later on in this episode, we will announce the winner of the poll for the next book that we'll be reading, the first book of 2023. I'm very excited for that announcement. And we're going to have a good time today interviewing some writers. It's going to be a grand old time. I am your host, Adrian Santiago, an author and content creator here on the YouTubes. And I have to say I'm very, very excited because my novel, my manuscript has finished the editing process through the editor. I am wrapping up all of the changes that I have to make for this most solid third draft, and I should be done with that in just over a week from today. I think like a week from today and 1 day is my projected finish date, and then critique partners and beta readers all get it. It's going to be great. I'm really excited. I want to go ahead and get started. Let's bring out our panel of co-hosts first and foremost, because not only ladies first, but also she's a little under the weather, and I want to make sure that we give her a little time. And then I don't know if she's going to stick around for the whole thing. I don't know. But we're playing it by ear. The always awesome SD Houston. Shannon, welcome. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Do you want to do an intro, or do you want to save your voice? I can. You're going to save your voice. All right. So you can check out Shannon's channel. You know what? It should be linked down below. If it's not, it will be before the end of the show, and or I'll throw it into the chat. And she runs the AWC, the AuthorTube Writing Conference, and that's coming up again next year. I'm very, very excited to see that. And she does that with her co-host, our man in the field, Ben Pick. Hey, Ben, how you doing, man?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Great, where are you, and why are you holding your microphone like that? Explain yourself to the people.
I am at my wife's family's house, and we are getting ready for Thanksgiving, so I have a remote setup right now, and I am just grabbed a room I could, and by the way, it is 35 degrees Fahrenheit or 1 degree Celsius. Also, if you want, I can do an intro
Introduce yourself to the audience. Yeah.
Sure. I am Ben Pick. I am running to write every Monday night at 7 p.m. usual time, where I give questionable writing advice through running metaphors. And I am right there with you with the edits. I just pushed in the last changes yesterday to my upcoming book, Expanding Cracks, which comes out on December 3rd. And on December 3rd at noon, I will be having a book launch party. So that's going to be pretty big, and I hope to see you all there.
That sounds awesome, dude. Congratulations on finishing the book. I'm so excited for you. Next up.
And wonderful.
Oh, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say the wonderful Books by Adrian created the teaser trailer for it. So you'll have that to look forward to on that Saturday.
I hope you did a good job, because your book deserves it. Next up, the always hilarious and ever punctual Richard Holiday.
Hello, I'm here.
Welcome, Dickie. How you doing, bud?
Who the hell's
Introduce
Dickie?
Yourself.
I am Richard Holiday. I'm the author of this book, which is also up there for branding reasons. If you want to find out more about my stuff, because I've got a new book coming out in Q1 2023, subscribe to my newsletter. I am about to finish some beta feedback, but unlike Adrian, I've actually received the first draft of my cover, and I liked it.
Way to rub it in, bud. Way to rub it in. I'm glad that we're all so far along in the processes for our next and in my case first books. That's really, really exciting. Can't wait to read all this stuff. You guys want to get into it with these dudes? All right. So we have here with us Martin Lejeune and Malcolm Bradley. I'm going to bring them both out at the same time because apparently they are one and the same. So here we go. Martin Lejeune, Malcolm Bradley, welcome to the show. Hello, how are you?
Good evening.
Martin, go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll go to Malcolm after that.
I am Bradley Lejeune. I am one half of him, and we wrote this, and you read it, and now we're going to have a conversation about it.
That's very much what we're doing. Well done. Okay, Malcolm, welcome to the channel, bud. How are you? Who are you? And where are you from?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm Malcolm Bradley. I'm the other half of him. Yeah, we've been writing the McMurdo Rift series, and we are currently on hopefully a last round of edits for the second book, the McMurdo Triangle.
Wonderful. You know what, Dickie? I'm going to get rid of the McMurdo Rift cover because I don't want to cover up your beautiful face like that. That's so rude of
I
you.
just do that.
You can do, yeah. That'll work. That'll work much better. Let's do that.
I mean, if it's a choice, I'd rather have the book cover. If that's okay with you guys.
Sod you, Martin. Sod you.
You know what? You know what? I'll put my face down there because nobody wants to see that.
Okay.
And then boom, there we go. And then I'll just kind of scoot. Everybody else put your books. If I get a Kindle for Christmas, I'll start holding up my copy.
I can't believe I didn't bring one.
Sorry, I didn't bring my
let's
copy
very
with me.
quickly. Yeah, let's very quickly say hello to the chat. We got Cool Gamer in there. We have, of course, our panelists in there, way more engaged than the audience. Jennifer, welcome. How are you? All right, guys. So first up, how did you guys start writing together and why? Either one of you can jump in.
I'm so confused with what I've said on what channels with various.
Oh, you got to keep your story straight?
Yeah, your lies are going to catch up with you.
Different story for whoever you're telling it.
You're like the Joker.
I'm
You have
just
a
trying
different
not to
origin story
repeat
for everybody.
Oh.
No, go ahead.
You know, we've got one story for Dickie, one story for Adrian, and one story for the New 52. I thought you'd be more down with a dated DC ref, but there we are.
I get
so
it. I love the New 52.
It's 15 years out of date, man.
That's right up my alley.
It just
That's how old I am.
happened, surely. However, speaking of 15 years ago, we were long-suffering ice cream men, and I wanted to be a movie director, and I didn't have any... Dickie! I didn't have an idea for a film ready to go, and Malcolm was like, I've got an idea. Let me know, what actors you can get, what locations you can get, and I'll go off and write something. And I thought that sounded terribly easy. So he comes back after a weekend, and I'm like, did you write a script? And he goes, yes, but I don't think you're going to like it. And it was basically a 5-minute post-apocalyptic comedy called Flat-Footed Apocalypse. If you go to my YouTube channel, you can find out for yourself why he thought it might not be popular. But it ended up being one of the most successful films I ever made, and people often mention that it's their favorite of my films, which infuriates me no end, because I'm terribly egotistical. And then we sort of drifted apart, as people do in life. And I think it was about 2017. I was a freelancing visual effects artist. And Malcolm was, and still is, a ghostwriter. Woo! And we started just emailing, sort of lamenting the difficulties of being a freelancer and all that entails, and being a support group. And, we'd started looking at how indie publishing works, and sort of going, oh, have you seen this? And oh, you can do something like this, and you put a series out, and then you're rich. And we both sort of wrote first drafts of things and showed it to each other, and we went, oh, we're both really good writers, yeah. And then 2020 rolled around, and Malcolm pointed out that neither of us had published anything, and would we like to team up? And I said no, because I just done NaNoWriMo, and I was feeling terribly self-assured, and I had the newfound ability to go forward and make my mark. And then I remembered that writing's terribly lonely, and that if we did this, and Malcolm would have to actually sit down and talk to me more often, which I'd enjoy. So he was like, yeah, I think I've got some. And this was literally like 2 days before New Year's Day 2021, and he was like, yeah, I should have a gap in my schedule in March. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then I'd sort of message him going, well, I'm thinking something like this, and maybe with a bit of this, and we could do something like that. And he goes, would you maybe like to start this a bit sooner? And I said, yes. So that was how the McMurdo Rift came to be.
Okay, show of hands. How many want to go all the way back to Ice Cream Men? I don't think I've ever met someone who actually worked as an ice cream man before. Obviously, I've met ice cream men when I buy ice cream from them, but I've never actually known them in real. I thought they were NPCs.
The NDAs are notorious. We can't actually talk about it. It's
before I kick,
like this. A sorbet subject.
I expect that kind of nonsense out of Dickie over there, but Martin, I'm disappointed.
I was going to say, what's the scoop on the ice cream origin story?
Yeah, the scoop. All right, so
it's a story that won't be topping.
Are you going to sprinkle it with anecdotes?
You're the host. You can mute them at any time.
No.
What I'm going to say is, I think the ice here is wafer thin.
It's just, and it's not even Martin. I feel like just Richard being here like pokes him and makes him do things. He's like, Richard's here, I have to act up. Okay, so you guys started writing together. You started writing the McMurdo Rift together, strictly out of the desire to publish something. How long between the first draft getting started on the first draft rather to publishing? How long did it take you guys?
The first draft was started in the end of February 21, and we published in April 22.
Not bad at all, especially for how good the book is. It's actually really impressive. All right, let's kick it through the panelists for some questions.
You got to take time to get things right. You look at Better Call Saul, and it's good, but you look at that last season; they had a bit of extra time, and
I will kick you out, Martin. I will kick you out of this. They don't know that you're mocking me, but I know, and I will kick you out.
I'm not sure if he said, "Oh, considering you're writing that," I'm not sure if that was a backhanded compliment or not.
All right, so let's kick it through the panelists. Ben, why don't you go ahead and take your first question for Martin and or Malcolm? Let's get Malcolm talking.
Sure. I was going to say, how did you delegate between who wrote what? Because you said that, or Martin, you said that Bradley had gotten you the first draft or the idea for the first draft, and then you sort of took it away from there. But like, how did you really know who would take over which chapters or focus on which aspects of the story?
He does what I tell him.
I'm quite sort of obedient and pliable until I'm not really. But that was, I think it was really easy actually, wasn't it? To kind of, I think that's been one of the easiest parts of it, is sort of splitting responsibilities. I mean, Martin's really good at plotting and just getting an idea down. and then I'm probably more the massager of the idea sort of thing, and I guess I'm kind of, because Martin's very organized, but I'm probably more patient, maybe it's maybe fair to say, with sort of taking a lot of time with the manuscript and going, sort of tweaking and that sort of thing, whereas Martin's a man of action. And so I think that's kind of, that's worked quite well, really, isn't it, with you kind of having kind of the idea and then me sort of taking the time to process that into polishing it into the finished product sort of thing.
A lot of the early stuff, I was working a job where I had no time until 5 p.m, and Malcolm has a family and has no time after 6 p.m, and it took us a while to figure out a schedule that wasn't me talking to him on the phone walking home in the rain in the winter. And a lot of our early sort of developments was just me standing at bus stops shivering, going,
me cooking.
No, the aliens can't have a hive mind. That's just the Borg.
And yet it stayed in there anyway.
So Martin is the man of action. Malcolm polishes things up. It sounds like Martin, plots it out or writes it out, sends it to Malcolm. Malcolm then shapes it a little bit, makes it a little flow a little better. What exactly do you feel is your biggest strength, Malcolm? Like what exactly are you most focused on when you get pages from Martin over here?
I think it's definitely that thing of whenever you haven't, because obviously I've written a lot of books where I've been the main writer and taken the whole process, but I would be the first to admit I'm not a great plotter, and that's still something I'm working on, and I'm definitely a pantser. So I think getting something that has been plotted and that has a really strong framework already, it's just like starting it in a better place. But then I think I am a naturally a good editor, so I'll see a lot of the things that need to happen and just come to it as a reader, I suppose, to an extent. Even though I already kind of know the story, you can kind of still come to it as a reader. That's kind of quite a fun part of receiving the manuscript from Martin, is that I can kind of experience it and see it a little bit third person as to when you first drafted it yourself. So I think that's part of what really works about it.
That's nice. Yeah, I like that you guys each have your own strengths and are very self-aware about them. I like that. I like that a lot. Shannon, did you have a question? If you don't want to speak it, you can throw it into the chat and I'll throw it up on the screen. Whatever you prefer.
I just would say it was like deja vu when Ben asked this question, because we've had these two on the self-publishing Tips-centric show. I was like, wait, this sounds familiar.
Yeah, see, I wanted to watch a bunch of interviews with them so I wouldn't repeat myself, but I also come from the Marvel school of thinking where every comic book is somebody's first, or every episode is somebody's first. And I just figure there are people out there who have no idea. Let's just start at the beginning.
And I do think that ice cream story, that's brand new. I don't think I've heard that before anywhere. So
I think he made it up. I think he just threw it in there.
Oh.
No, I don't know.
I did have a question. How much of your guys' own lives, your own relationships with other people, found their way into the manuscript and the relationships we see between the characters?
Now we're getting juicy.
That's a good question.
I would like to say
you go, Martin.
That it is the... Did you have an answer?
No, you go.
Okay. I'd like to say that I wear my heart on my sleeve and I put my own experiences, with my wife, with my cat, with my spaceship, all in the book. But that wouldn't be the truth. Most of the characterization is simply Humphrey Bogart in Casablanca.
That's wow. Damn it.
Makes
I missed
sense.
that. Yeah, that does make a lot of wheels click into place. How about you, Malcolm?
I don't think there's anyone too sort of directly in it that I can say, I can definitely draw that from someone in my life. But I think they probably all get a little bit of that because of yeah, I think I do kind of believe that characters are developed in their dialogue and in the interactions you write for them, and these characters have definitely grown over the now sort of certainly 2 books that I've been heavily involved in, although there's more that Martin's sort of drafted. So for me personally, I feel they've kind of grown over that time. So yeah, and I think you're always putting a little bit yourself into that. But I kind of really like having a cast of characters are all quite distinctly different, which is probably generally quite important for a good book anyway.
Yeah.
But you know, someone like NG is, you know, stands out so differently, and I think it's been quite sort of a favorite, and it's just real fun to develop something like that, where you're just going, okay, how do they distinguish themselves as being into what is them is an alien culture and things like that sort of thing. So and Jeff, I fought for Jeff quite a bit to have as much a role as possible.
Nice.
Yeah, I was curious about the relationships, because the relationships between the characters felt very, very real. And so that's why I wondered if you guys had modeled that on some relationships that you knew.
Martin.
I think some of it is taken from, you know, our own experiences of having grown apart and come back together with this project.
Richard, before I throw it to you, along the same lines of that questioning, Martin, I know for a fact that you like to throw in a lot of like historical true events and just sort of making them fantastical and throwing them into your story. Tell us a little bit about that. I consider you kind of a history buff. So where does that come from, and how do you put that into your books?
I love history. It's essentially storytelling, only more so. Like when we were first talking on those, you know, cold winter evenings, like we were talking about what is the sci-fi we oh, absolutely. We were talking about like what is the sci-fi we grew up with, what are, you know, would we be influenced by, and a lot of you know, the sci-fi from the 70s and even into the 90s was very much the Cold War. And, you know, our early, you know, conversations were like, you know, who are our Russians? And that sort of thing. One idea that I could never quite make work was that Earth would be like post-war Berlin, and you'd actually have Karoo occupiers. But because the book's not based on Earth particularly, it didn't really... It was like one of those things that you'd sort of put in as a bit of a detail, and if someone didn't catch it and we go to Earth later on, then that's going to be a bit of a difficult one to explain, and it never really sat right. So instead, I've sort of based Earth on the Weimar Republic, which was Germany after the First World War, and they've just had this massive defeat, and you know, I'll leave you to speculate where that might end up.
I'd just like to add in the historical reference thing that I mean, bearing in mind I actually have a degree in history as well, and yet many of when we're sort of having, you know, our sort of weekly discussions and Martin's bringing in a new idea and he makes a historical reference, at least 90% of the time I have no idea what he's talking about and often just miss it straight. So his historical knowledge, particularly of the last sort of 100 years or so, of sort of British related history, is just is impressive.
Yeah, Martin's really good at making me feel like a real dum-dum. Every now and then he just brings something up and I'm like, oh yeah, totally. The treaty of the I have no idea what he's talking about.
One of our early ideas was before we sort of stumbled on where we actually wanted to go with the Karoo, was that the character of Arnold would be a Karoo spy, kind of like Captain Black and Captain Scarlet. It was what we did with pretty much all the characters. Like, I'm a big fan of Malcolm is as well, thankfully, of just putting a placeholder name in and getting a draft down. And so I assumed that, like the rest, Arnold Philby would be a placeholder name, and it was like the most on the nose name I could think of for a turncoat. Basically, a combination of Kim Philby, who was one of the Cambridge spy rings in the 1950s, who were British university students who went into the intelligence services and then defected to the Soviet Union, and Benedict Arnold, who was
that one I know.
American.
I know that reference.
Who was an American who went over to the British in the Revolutionary War.
See, I only understood like a third of that.
There's a placeholder name in the book coming up that is just completely stayed now and was.
Yeah,
you'll see it when you're there, but you're just like, oh right, please spot the most obvious placeholder name. It's just staying.
It's a good drinking game to play. I like it.
Yeah.
Richard, you have been on your bestest behavior over there.
I have, haven't I?
I was going to throw it to you for the next question.
Don't have a question as such. I just want to ask Martin and Malcolm.
Here we go.
What was your greatest productivity tool, and why was it a spreadsheet?
And he ruins it.
So it's a good point there. How did you go about outlining this whole series? Because I have found outlining a series is actually really difficult. Outlining itself is just a bit of a dark art. So, yeah, and I think having the collaborative. I'm talking, Martin. This is what I have to put up with now. And I kind of find the whole collaborative aspect of this planning is just fascinating. I think you've done a great job. You can talk now.
I find outlining is kind of like if you ever played like on the N64 or the PS1 and like any of those big open world games where everything far away is really foggy until you get close to it and it comes into sharp focus. And you sort of need that foggy idea going forward. And then as you've got that, you know a direction and you can figure out the details later. Mm-hmm. And when we were outlining book one, we were like, we knew. When did we decide to go for book 6?
What, as in to do 6 books?
Yeah, was that after book 1 was written?
Probably at least after the first draft was done. I don't think we got that brave perhaps in.
But basically, I realized what I was thinking, because everything I'd read was that you need a series. It needs to be, an ongoing thing. If you have a trilogy and you throw the ring into the volcano and you go home, and then you try and sell a 4th book, you're not going to have as good reader follow through. So I was trying to think of a way that we could write 3 books, and if no one was interested in them, we could do something that we could say that was all we were ever going to do. And if people, loved them, we could keep going. I just sort of wanted to have that trapdoor in place. And the more I read, the more I was reading people saying my books did nothing until book 3, book 5, book 6 was out. And I was just like, we've got to run the gambit and write a series and hope for the best. And once I'd made that decision, I realized that we needed to do certain things that would allow the series to run. And we weren't initially outlining a book, we were building a universe. And like you develop a TV show, something that could generate story, possibly for years to come. And once I knew that it was going to be 6 books, then it couldn't just be the Karua mustache twirling villains. We had, there has to be more at play than is immediately obvious. And once we did that, we completely readdressed what their role was going to be in the first 3 books. And then we were able to sort of figure out a long-term strategy. And spreadsheets.
Actually, it's I mean, what you were sort of saying about sort of, you know, thinking about things for book 6, I think again it kind of illustrates a little bit of a difference about the difference in the way we work. That I'll get a WhatsApp from Martin saying, "What do you think about such and such happening in book 6?" And I'm sort of sat there thinking, well, I'm right in the middle of an edit on book 2, and I have no idea because this is all I can think about, sort of thing. For us, I think Martin's mind's really good at jumping around and grabbing little plots that might happen, you know, in the future, and I'm completely trying to work out how this scene goes into the next scene and how this pays off a little bit later in the same novel. And I think that's definitely, yeah, again,
what I love about a spreadsheet is I sort of come and go on like your Save the Cats and your heroes' journeys and whatnot. You know, sometimes I'll really lean into them, and other times I'll just split it into quarters, and that'll be enough. But once I've done that, I sort of need an idea of where I'm starting, where I'm finishing, what the middle is, and like end of Act 1, end of Act 2. And once I've got those, then I know how to jump around and fill in the spaces in between. Which Malcolm's just like, what are you doing? How can you do that? Why don't you just do one at a time like a normal person?
Stop distracting me.
And so through doing that, I'm able to, you know, figure out where I want the whole book to go. And sort of as I go, I kind of start to like know what I want the later books to be. Like even when I was writing book 3, I didn't really have a clear idea for book 4. But now I've outlined book 4 and I've got a pretty solid idea of what book 5 is going to be. And I'm starting to figure out what everyone's end point is going to be in book 6.
Very cool.
We're just awed by that answer into silence. There is nothing any of us could possibly say after that.
I've been trying not to jump in at every pause. So like sometimes I'll let the pause go a little too long, maybe. Ben, did you have another question for our guests today?
Yeah. I just had more of a question for Malcolm and Martin. How did you come up with the Koru in particular? Because there's an infinite number of aliens that you could have created, and you settle on these avian bird-like creatures with a hive mind. I didn't know, was there any specific process where you're just staring outside and saw a bird and thought it looked cool, or what was the mindset for that?
I think, like Martin said, we definitely started off kind of going Borg, not Borg sort of thing a little bit. But I think they moved away from that. I know for me, one moment was just, I love sort of Pinterest and, you know, anywhere with a lot of images on to just go looking for ideas. And I just found this image. I think it was probably from a video game of a sort of an alien, sort of humanoid alien creature that had a really sort of kind of, it was almost more of a sort of, I suppose, like a lizard-like kind of sort of colouring sort of thing, like a blue lizard-like colouring in that sort of pattern, as if they had scales sort of thing. And it just set my mind off in a slightly chameleon kind of way. And yeah, it just kind of, I think sort of certainly the kind of the sort of physical look of them kind of went a little bit from there from me. But yeah, again, I think they've kind of developed in the writing at the same time, certainly the society and seeing them through NG, and also not just NG, but how NG, as she's moved outside of the society and how she's changing, reflects against when we come across your average Koru sort of officer, soldier, whatever sort of thing. So yeah,
The Koru were all Malcolm.
They like literal copies of Malcolm.
Yeah.
Each one was Malcolm in disguise. Saving her voice, SD Houston is sending her question in written out. Will we see other alien races in later books?
Can we say that, Martin? I say things and then you tell me I shouldn't have said them. So
that's because you announced publication dates that are now in the past.
Yeah, true.
We did the self-publishing tips and tricks, and Malcolm said a date, and we sat down on our next meeting, and I said, right, you've announced this date, so that means we'll need, we need it to be with beta readers on this date. We'll need it to be, formatted on this date. We'll need the draft finished on this date. And he was like, but that's in 2 weeks. I can't do that. I'm like, well, you shouldn't have announced it.
So what you're saying, Martin? Martin's crash. I've killed Martin.
No, I was being polite for once.
No,
so
Martin, you have the floor. You go ahead.
Oh, I forgot what I was going to say anyway. Imagine I was going to say something inside.
Alien races.
Let's try and figure it out. You're saying aliens. It sounds like we're aliens. Hey. Will we see other aliens? The main players are the UHW and
UTC.
The UTC. UHW was in the first draft. The UTC and the Koru. They're like the main governments. They're like your Federation and your Klingons. You've got people like the Enceladines who aren't really nipping around space, but they've got they've got a presence, and we will be meeting more people. There might also be people we've already met but not realized yet. Consider yourselves teased.
Ooh,
I like it.
I'm very teased.
Richard, you don't have COVID. You can ask your question out loud. So
I've forgotten what it is now. Martin was too busy being annoying.
When is book 2 out?
Yes, when is book 2 out, Malcolm?
Speak to Martin.
Nice call.
He's learned now. He's learned.
He's learned his lesson.
I need to talk to Adrian. I need to talk to Adrian and Ben and make sure we don't all pick the same day.
Oh, I highly doubt that will happen. But
dude, I'm December 3rd. I'm before the end of the year, so
yeah, Ben's good. Ben's
well,
good.
Someone likes spending advertising money.
Yeah, man. December. Well, that's what I wanted to do originally. Was December. My thought was holiday season. People get gifts. It's a nice stocking stuffer or whatever.
It'll be kind of a soft launch, and then I'll start promoting in January, February. So I'm not really doing much marketing beforehand.
In my part of the world, every season is holiday season.
I know we're consumerist America.
I just got that. I just got that.
Also, what Ben said.
I mean, I can't.
Oh, sorry. What did Ben say?
Oh, every season is a buying season. I don't know.
Malcolm.
Oh, Martin. Sorry.
I can say that. I mean, we are pretty much done with the sort of edits following beta readers looking at it. So, the book is the second book is definitely really close to being done, which is something. Yeah, I don't usually dare say too quickly because I'm usually the one that wants to drag things out. I think longer and longer, despite promising early dates. So yeah, I think Martin will probably come up with a release plan pretty soon.
We're hoping for first quarter next year, and we're quietly confident we might be able to get a shorter turnaround on book 3, but that will remain to be seen.
One of
the things we've
No, go ahead.
One of the things we've learned doing this is, whilst it's really important to have deadlines, it's also really important to be flexible and say, no, let's send it round for another go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, ideally you don't want to announce your release date until the whole thing is done and in the can, ready to go.
This is what I'm trying to do with my new book, because one of the lessons I learned publishing this which you should buy, by the way, it's not bad, is that I felt that I did rush it in because I announced a release date and I was like, shit. So I'm trying to avoid that. I mean, my kind of like launch window has moved quite a lot over the last but it takes as long as it takes at the end of the day. But I suppose at some point you have to say it's done now. Let's get this one out and move on to the next one. That wasn't really a question, more of a statement.
Okay. Who's up next? Ben? No, Richard. Richard. Is it another
I just
Richard?
said something.
No, questions.
What? I don't have questions.
Ben, do you have another question for our guests?
I've been pulling the streets and I don't have anything. I gotta wait a few more minutes.
All right, no worries. Shannon, how about you? Any last questions for our guys here?
Will you make a cat Geoff plush? Oh,
Geoff.
A plushie. She wants a plush of the cat.
Geoff. Jeff.
I think we're going to have to do what they did in the Harry Potter books and just have someone pronounce how the name said, because several people have sort of come back with that, and that's just how Jeff is written in English.
It is.
See, I thought Jeff was written Jeff in English.
Either works.
No, that's the
It's the lazy American version, isn't it?
It's still English.
Is it though? You're talking to three English people.
Yeah, I know.
My
And I'm
question-
Puerto Rican. I'm not even.
You're not even a proper American.
I'm not even a proper American. I come from a territory.
So actually, that's a good
There's,
question about merch and what your marketing strategy is going to be for the next book.
what I would say is one of our biggest sort of moments of where we thought this all might come crumbling down and that we would fall out forever is the scene in which the Koru are searching the Mutt's nuts for the minerals.
Every time.
There was a scene from Jeff's point of view. And
The Lost Jeff scene.
Oh man, that would have been fun.
with like Jeff's internal monologue, and I'm like, Malcolm, this might fly in these cozy mysteries they pay you to write, but this is space opera, and we don't go by that kind of shenanigans here.
So what you're saying is there's not going to be a Jeff prequel. I mean, I think the demand
subscribe
is
to the
there.
newsletter and wait and see.
Oh, Jeff solving cozy mysteries on the Olympic. Murder mysteries on the Olympic.
you could
There's
offer in your newsletter that extra chapter.
Ah,
I'd read that.
Detective
Jeff solving
Jeff.
mysteries on the Olympic.
Well, on the subject of marketing and merch, Martin, that's a very nice T-shirt and an even nicer hoodie you're wearing. You want to show them
mug.
off? Like, what do you got? What do you got there?
So this was a present
t-shirt.
from my father-in-law.
Oh.
Tell the story about how he got the image, Martin.
You okay? What happened?
He grabbed it off Amazon, and this is my celebrated Books by Adrian hoodie.
that you
Malcolm's
didn't pay
will be
for.
in the post soon.
Ooh, I need a new hoodie.
I need a new hoodie. Everyone needs a new hoodie.
Hey man, there's a link to the store in the description down below.
Pay for it.
you can use the Tuber Book Club discount for 20% off.
It's better.
I tried to do it again, Adrian. It would not let me do it.
It's still not working. I gotta figure that
I-
out. All
I
right,
wonder if
stand
it's
by.
like-
Are you using the discount code TrollRich? I thought Adrian deleted
No,
that.
it's like
No, I deleted that.
TC 2022 or
Yeah.
something.
TBC 2022 should be the working one. I'll double check it after this.
And maybe it's just I need to try on another computer because maybe it's my computer or something.
I thought it was working last time I checked it, so I'm not sure.
Shannon, maybe you've been
I
infested
did
by a
actually-
Troll virus.
Yeah.
I did actually put together a design for a logo for the SS Olympic, which is one of the main ships in the series, and that was initially for my newsletter, but I am quite tempted to put that on all manner of merchandise.
Yeah.
Martin, tell us more about the origins of the Olympic.
It's a big boat.
Have you all ever taken any cruises before?
I don't think this is going where you think it's going. I've never taken a cruise. I always kind of consider them like a hotel where they lock you in. But
you're good at swimming to get out of it.
I do rather like the idea of one day going on the Queen Mary and crossing the Atlantic. I think that would be a cool thing to have done. Although I'll probably get half an hour in and be horrifically bored and want to go home. But we were originally...
When do you go with Martin?
My wife.
That's my invite. Where's Malcolm's invite?
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm
it
old
would
enough
be
to do the saga ones as well.
Been snubbing
It
out.
would be the mother of all writing retreats. It's like...
There's a good reason to take a cruise. Write a whole book.
Yeah. But we would initially, like... I was really reluctant to do exactly what we've done and have it just be, like a scrappy band of, like guys on a space freighter in like the Firefly Han Solo mold, because I am just livid at all those guys who take out Facebook ads going, "Hey, you liked Firefly, read this book." And I'm like, it's been 20 years, it still hurts. And I was trying to think, what's a setting we haven't really seen before? We've seen the big exploration vessel. We've seen, it's just on a planet. And I'm like, well, we've never really seen like just a liner like that you used to get on the Atlantic crossings. And I'm like, well, that's a really interesting setting. Unless anyone points guns at it, and then it gets really difficult. There's some of the stuff where we really push it in book one, where it's like, yeah, if a captain from P&O did that, he'd be fired faster than you could say, please don't fire me from P&O. One of the big inspirations for book two was Eric Larson's book, Dead Wake, which is all about the Lusitania, that was the essentially the ship that brought the Americans into the First World War, and it all talks about U-boats and all that sort of thing. And I'm reading about First World War U-boats that, like, this boat sank, like the Titanic sank in 2 hours, the Lusitania sank in 20 minutes. And I'm reading about these. I'm like, put these in a sci-fi setting, and you've got a really deadly, threatening force with a massive vulnerability, which is exactly what you want. Because if any of these U-boats surfaced near a warship, they had no defenses. If they were in the firing line, they were just gone. But if they're, able to get their shot in, then it's tables completely turned. And I was like, that was a really interesting setup for the second book, because the way the first book ends is we didn't want it to just be like, and now everyone's at war. One of our touchstones for the second book was book 3, the McMurdo War, coming 2023. One of our touchstones was the 5th or 4th Harry Potter, where the baddies have come back, but the people in charge are sort of just going, no, they're not. Don't talk about that. It'll be fine. Someone get the bot in the chat.
I just saw it.
And I thought that would be a really interesting setup. Is what if the Koru, they're not yet willing to send an all-out force to try and claim this resource, but they're trying to suggest that humanity could kindly leave. And that's sort of how the ideas for book 2 got spinning.
Now, the book for the most part is Franklin's POV, but we do have some chapters looking through the eyes of other characters. Were there any big challenges in finding the voices of these other characters being two writers tackling the same thing? Was that ever an issue? Did you guys ever have a hard time with that, or how did you guys keep that consistent? Because it was very well done.
I think sort of the POVs kind of developed over time to some extent, because there are certainly some scenes where, the characters are all together, but you're getting it from altering sort of different POVs. So I think certainly in the first draft, it was, it was leaning more towards Franklin on the whole, wasn't it? I think, and then that kind of sort of developed more as it went on.
We made a point very early on to sort of make references to other things and say this is what we're going for, and much like Bogart in Casablanca, to sort of keep us on the same track, and that really worked. And that sort of meant, to start with, we were sort of looking at these other things, but as we've gone on, it's become our characters, and we're on the same page because of that, as we've moved away from those initial influences. I mean, what I mean to say is, no, it was easy because we're marvelous.
Humble as ever, Martin. Humble as ever.
Ben, did you have any last questions for our guests as we start winding down a little bit here?
No, I got nothing. I really like their idea to take something, you have your inspirations, obviously, but to take something and then sort of expand on it to create your own and to design entirely new races, ships, scenarios. So I like how I'm excited to see how the series evolves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is definitely one that I'm going to continue reading for sure. Shannon, if you had any last minute questions, if you want to throw them in the chat, I'll throw them up on screen. Good. Richard, any last questions?
Questions. Again, apart from no, we've asked all the questions really. I just want to say this was a fantastic read. Again,
yes.
I was pleasantly surprised by the quality of Martin's writing, having edited that short story that he did for Kent Sean's short story contest, which he placed one higher above me for, which I've not forgiven him for. But yeah, it was a cracking read. I think it's going to be a fascinating series. I love the kind of historical elements you're kind of interweaving in there. It's one of those kind of books that I'm kicking myself for not writing myself. It's that good. So, well done.
I have to say, we have had moments where Malcolm's gone, that's not realistic. It's simply not believable. And I'm pointing at the historic text going, it happened, it's a thing! And he's like, I'm not sure if anyone would buy it.
I bought it. Oh, you mean it?
That's hilarious because, yeah, like the old adage of truth being stranger than fiction. The idea of taking from actual history the most absurd occurrences and putting them into fiction, and then somebody going, I don't buy it. It's like, no. That's
I just want to say that I was the one that recommended Dead Wake to Martin because he recommended Midnight in Chernobyl to me, which is another fascinating book.
Richard, are you trying to take credit for the McMurdo Rift? Because they're
just a tiny slither, if I may. I think you've done a really good job in weaving some of that kind of history and taking the salient points out of that and transplanting it into your story. So well done, and I definitely appreciated those elements.
I really enjoyed the book too.
Good.
And this isn't normally your genre, right, Shannon? So
No.
So that's saying a lot.
I like science fiction, but not space operas.
And she very quickly was won over by the book, I remember. So yeah. Richard.
My final question is: as it's a space opera, will the next one include singing?
What? Singing?
Opera singing?
Oh.
Well, if there's a movie, there could be a musical version. That'd be pretty good.
I'd buy a ticket to that.
I would.
Franklin singing and dancing up and down the halls of the
Jeffrey the musical on
Yeah.
Broadway.
I was just thinking that with the cat.
Like a cane and a top hat.
Have to be better than Cats.
You guys could do a short film to go along with the book.
Are you going to get Judi Dench for that?
Yeah, you know what? Jeffrey has a whole like spin-off cartoon vibe. You know what I mean? Like you could do a whole like, I guess they don't really have Saturday morning cartoons anymore, right? They're just cartoons now. But I was thinking like a Saturday morning cartoon type deal with Jeffrey the cat solving mysteries.
You could do like a series of kids' novels like Goosebumps, but the Jeffrey Adventures.
That would be cool. Like when we don't see Jeff throughout the book in his first book, he could be doing his own mysteries. He could be off doing like his own little mysteries, and you can bring those in as like little side stories.
Yeah, didn't they do Lion King 1.5? They did that where Timon and Pumbaa were there the whole time. They were in every scene of the Lion King. You just didn't know it, like they were in the background, and so you see the entire movie from another perspective. It's pretty hilarious.
Okay.
Which is funny because it's kind of based on Hamlet, and then you got Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, which is kind of the same idea.
Martin.
Don't worry about it, dummy.
No one understands those references, Martin.
I'm just gonna nod and say
dumb
yes.
for you.
Oh,
Ben?
Vincent, you got it. I do get
Right.
most of what you say, Martin, but I
Very
didn't get
British
that one.
humor.
Yeah.
Isn't that a British show?
Is that?
Rosencrantz
I don't
and
know.
It's a play, darling.
I thought it was British in origin.
Everything's British in origin.
Spoken like a
But
true
it is,
colonizer.
but it is.
Gentlemen, congratulations on writing a badass book. Congratulations on the ongoing series. I honestly can't wait to read more. This book has been a joy to read, and I'm excited. I'm excited to get more down the line. Thank you both for being here. Malcolm, I know you're not usually one to make the appearances, so I very much appreciate that.
Oh, no worries. Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for the kind words on the book as well.
Just want to say, whenever their newsletter comes out, I'm always like Martin. Oh, it's a Malcolm episode. I'm like, oh, it's a Martin episode. So I like
Yeah.
So let's take a sec out here and do the big reveal for what our next book is. Before I do, this poll kind of surprised me. So you guys, who do you think won? Anybody know? Anybody got guesses? No? All right, let's find out. Shannon, that was your pick, right? No?
It was one I put up a few weeks, a few times ago.
Nice.
So if I really want one to get picked, I need to give it to someone else.
Yeah, apparently.
I'm going to get Ben to do all my nominations going forward.
Well, I'm excited to read it.
I think I nominated someone else last time, and
I can't remember anything anymore.
I've been here longer than you.
I think this is the second time that my pick has not won.
Oh.
That's the first thing that came to my mind. I was like, I didn't win. How is this possible? It's my channel. This is all wrong. No, I'm excited to read it. Margaret is a
I'm in touch with
writer.
the people. I'm out there
You should
pulling the streets, seeing.
You got
seeing
that?
what's what.
Yeah, he's out in the
You should get
field.
on Margaret's top people.
He was polling just at the very last minute.
He said he's going for a run. He's actually polling people for the vote.
It's funny. Yeah, well, we should be diving into that in, I think, February. And if I hold on to my schedule, that should be just before my book comes out. Probably mid to late February is what I'm aiming for right now. Fingers crossed.
Sweet.
I'm not announcing officially any date. Nobody hold me to this.
You're announcing an aspiration to have
I'm not. I'm not pulling a Malcolm.
As it shall henceforth be known.
Yeah, it's a verb now.
So
Gentlemen.
Martin and Malcolm want those dates. I gotta hurry up and publish the announcement before you. I'm just kidding.
If anybody can,
Yes.
if anybody can do it, they can. But they're gonna be all right.
I'm just
They're gonna
joking.
be fine. All right, y'all. Well, thank you all very much for being here. Thank you for coming. It's been a pleasure as usual. This is the last one for 2022, so I won't be doing any more of these for a little while. But you know what?
It's wrapping up.
Yeah, we have read 5 books this year, guys, and we didn't even get started until like April, if I remember correctly. So I'm very, very happy with that. I'm very impressed with what we've accomplished this year. That's 4 more books than I usually read in a year. So
my question, Adrian, is what was your favorite?
This was my favorite. This was definitely my favorite. But it was like written for me, though. You know what I mean? Like if it's one of those books where, like, as soon as I started reading it, I was like, "Oh, this is right up my alley. This is exactly what I like to read." So yeah, I was in from the jump.
That was no accident, by the way. It was very much we looked at what the genre was. We looked at what you saw a lot of. There's a reason that we're 10 years out of a war. And people were like, "Oh, you've just copied Firefly." And it's like, well, no, because Babylon 5 was 10 years after a war. The Expanse takes place, after a recent war. You've got, like John Scalzi stuff. It's like, happens over and over again. And you sort of have those touchstones. And, we hoped that it would appeal to the people who like those things. And it seems that it has, which is remarkably gratifying. I ran a Facebook ads campaign and just had someone, who bought the book off the back of it and left a 5-star review on Amazon, which was not something I expected to happen, until much further down the line.
Dude, that's the goal. That's literally like my measure of success is that somebody you don't know, you didn't go after, you didn't ask them to, they just found it themselves, decided to pick it up, and they loved it. That's I can't wait for that. It's like crack.
Yikes.
I mean, I wouldn't know. I've never. Anyway, so all right, y'all. Thank you so much for being here. I actually have my children all alone watching TV over there, and I'm actually they've been too quiet. And as a parent, I'm like panicking right now. So I'm going to wrap this up and go find out why they're so quiet, make sure they're still alive. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for taking this journey with us. This whole year has been awesome, and Tuber Book Club has been a major highlight. So thank you all for being a part of it. Thank you so much. All right, y'all. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you so much, everybody in the chat, for being here. Hasta la pasta. Goodbye.
Bye.